of the summer. Summerslam could be heading out of the safe, confined quarantine bubble of the WWE Performance Center in Orlando, Florida. And it looks like we may have a location, reportedly, in the Northeast of the United States. We'll cover these topics and so much more on this episode, a Tuesday edition of the WrestleZone podcast. What's going on, everybody? I am Kevin Kellum, coming to you from my apartment where the Wi-Fi is reasonable. And joining me, as always, from the city of Three Rivers, Pittsburgh, PA. Hey. Put down your D's. It's double D. How you doing, Dominic D'Angelo? How are you?
Doing good. Hey, I'm wearing a Jets bandana today. How badly do you think my ass would get whooped in Raw Underground Fight Club?
It would get whooped pretty bad. We will talk about the Underground, WWE's Kumite, all right? We will break the rule of Fight Club and talk about Fight Club.
We're talking.
And if you're joining us on YouTube, go ahead and enjoying the conversation as well. If you're with us on Facebook, go ahead and do that. And if you're with us on the podcast side of things, thank you so much. Hope you guys are enjoying the show, especially if you're listening on demand, watching on demand. We love your comments. Even if you're not watching live, we still go back and we follow up on those comments as well. A lot of content from us every single week for free with no paywall, no Patreon. All right. We literally produce some weeks, I think like 8 or 9 hours of free stuff. So definitely go and check it out. And of course, read everything at WrestleZone.com. So let's just jump right into our leadoff story. If people are with us, this has been growing for weeks and weeks and weeks. And last week, it's definitely started to build up some steam. There have been talk of it at some point in May that WWE, when things were looking much better and COVID numbers were coming down across the country, that WWE would possibly take SummerSlam into a different venue somewhere in Florida, where a lot of action was already happening at the time with sports. The NBA was heading there and going into a bubble. Major League Baseball was potentially looking at some sites there as well. Things have obviously changed and gotten much worse in the United States with COVID numbers. But some areas have gotten safer. And obviously there's been a demand of the WWE fan base to see something else besides a performance center. Even though it's certainly safer, there have been some COVID issues there, but certainly it's much safer for WWE to run shows there. But there has been a clamoring demand for some aesthetic changes. And it looks like from today's Wrestling Observer, we have an idea of what those changes may be. Dominic, where is SummerSlam potentially heading? We can't confirm it's going to happen, though.
Oh, it's going to be in the backyard of Nucky Thompson and kind of pretty close to Tony Soprano's stomping grounds. It's the talk is going to be Atlanta. And you know what? It's not just the fans that are really kind of clamoring for a different. It's reportedly from Dave Meltzer. It's that it's Vince McMahon that really wants to get out of the Performance Center and put SummerSlam on a live. Well, yeah, in a different venue. It's a different atmosphere, so to speak. So, which does, for SummerSlam, yeah, you kind of want to make it unique. People are getting a little, I think, even Vince McMahon, and that's saying something. If McMahon's getting tired of like the monotony of what WWE's used to producing, that we're all kind of looking for something a little different coming up as a vibe going on for.
And that's natural. I mean, it's natural. I think there's plenty of people like when they felt their state open up that I just want to go on a vacation, I want to go somewhere, I want to do something. There's plenty of people from the Northeast that went down to Florida once that time frame kind of opened up, and a lot of people worry that they're bringing back cases and there's hotbeds there. And WWE and AEW operating out of Florida. The NBA is down there. Major League Soccer's down there. There's definitely some people that maybe just want to get somewhere else and feel safer in an area where there isn't nearly as much of an outbreak, right? And if it feels like WWE has a better handle on testing, I think that 1 week when they actually went full force with testing, there was something like 1,500 tests administered to less than a few hundred people in just a few days. So that's multiple tests then. So I'm not saying we're going to have another COVID case. You could. It's very, anytime you leave your house, you're kind of taking a quality risk here. But what do you think of them going to New Jersey? That is a place where they have had some, different setbacks there. They've had some cases come up recently. But the potential site of Atlantic City in New Jersey, we kind of have the boardwalk there, open air. They're not the first people to do it. Game Changer Wrestling ran some shows there recently. They ran some blood sport matches, like really, really bloody death matches. There's something here. There's there, and there would be quite the visual of seeing the New York skyline in the background of a wrestling ring. And that's a show you got to have it in the day, right? You got to have some matches in the day there, right?
Oh, sure, yeah. Or like even under those like boardwalk lights with the Ferris wheel or whatever.
Yeah, it does have a. I mean, if you're going to embrace the idea of no fans being there or a limited amount of them, we'll get into the fan thing. The aesthetics of like a Ferris wheel behind you, which it would just look cool. Like it would just feel like Americana. Pro wrestling is Americana. And there's something fun about that. There is a potential for you to have, celebrities pop in and do that type of thing. You're in New York. There's plenty of people there, and there's plenty friends of the WWE in the New York area.
Joey Janela. Joey Janela's there.
Joey Janela will show up. Yeah.
Yep.
He'll just want to, he'll be asked. He'll think that Enzo Amore is still employed by WWE and will just want to have a fight with them. And he'll be angry there isn't a Blink-182 concert going on or something. So other people like Vernon saying, why don't you do SummerSlam at Disney World? Well, Disney World is a whole other conversation. Disney World is one of the biggest locations in terms of bringing in people in for entertainment purposes that has opened up. And that happened a few weeks ago. It's not clear how much COVID has come in or out of there. They do have a mask policy. And certainly they've seen it as a litmus test. Now, Disney's a giant company that took a real hit here by shutting down all of their theme parks for months and months at a time, especially heading into the summer. And also Florida, I think, put a lot of pressure on them, whether people like it or not. The culture in Florida put a lot of pressure on them to open up, even though it isn't safe. Because Florida, the thing you got to remember, and there's a major reason why a lot of people move down there, is the taxes are built around people bringing income from out of the state in so much, and that is beneficial to them. And that is why if you're a company that brings people in, they're okay with that. That is also why the government, and especially the governor, Ron DeSantis, wanted live sports back in July. He wanted it to be able to come back. And obviously it's not going to happen. They're not in that place to do that at all. Don't think you're going to see it happen with Disney. WWE doesn't have any. They have some media relationships with Disney, airing WrestleMania on ESPN the day of WrestleMania this year, like an old one, different things like that. But I don't see that happening at all. What do you think here of the potential of fans being at this? I know we have some figures on there. There could be some actual wrestling fans at a WWE wrestling show. What do we have as well from the Observer here?
Well, yeah. So Meltzer's reporting that if it's an indoor atmosphere for if it's going to take place in New Jersey, the mandate is 25 people. But if it's outside, you can have up to 500 people as long as you're following the social distance guidelines. So quite the variation of attendance going on there. But yeah, having some semblance of fans, if it was to take place inside, which I could not imagine them necessarily having that happen, I think it would be more outside, if anything else. But I don't think that risk is worth the reward in regards to having fans in attendance. If you're going to have it indoors, just keep it at the Performance Center, in my opinion. But if you're going to do it outside, I don't think there's necessarily, you do it safe, you do it in a smart manner, and you factor in how New Jersey's been doing as far as the COVID process for that state has been. If that's all copacetic, so to speak, then I don't see necessarily really a problem with it. And why not try it out then, So
you're saying if the green lights are go, if the green lights are there and everything feels safe and you do all your precautions, go ahead and do it. I mean, we're at a point where, AEW and WWE are not going to stop producing content. They're going to keep doing shows. And they will, if we don't have an NFL season, we will still have Survivor Series this November. Let me just put it that way. So I like this comment here from Eric, BigGrizz Billups, big fan of the show. Thank you so much. Eric texting in from the UK. It needs to be very limited attendance. If that's the case, it'll be a PR nightmare if COVID-19 runs rampant through the event. Obviously, yeah, I think anybody wants to do that. And WWE's had a couple. They had an outbreak. We don't know how big. They had a couple of confirmed cases, but just about a month and a half ago. Now it is believed that all those people have come out of it. We haven't heard of any severe cases of it. And you have to wonder if some of those were just asymptomatic, too. We don't know of any cases with AEW. They've been a lot more tight-lipped about it. And we do know that some people were hidden for exposure. One person was indirectly confirmed to have it. That would be QT Marshall, yet he has never gone on the record in saying he's had it. So there's some other people saying that as well. So, and also you have the false positive testing and things like that too. So I'm of the point now where wrestling is going to keep going. If you want them to stop, it's going to keep going. And now we have to look at the idea of, Are you going to do shows like people calling me?
Jeez, Kev, Hollywood, man.
I know people are telling me don't stop talking about that. So I'm getting a call from Stanford saying don't talk about that.
Hey,
no,
come on, pal, keep it on the deal.
I'm having someone probably tell me that I owe them money for college, and I'm going to say I don't have the money. So there was that. So it's certainly a challenging situation, and at least I like the idea. And we'll talk about WWE doing this. We'll talk a little bit more. We did our Raw post show. I gave it a fair rating. Go back and listen to the show. I thought WWE tried some things last night, and they needed to in response to the overall rating numbers they got the week before and the recent trend. And they do have a new creative chief in place, and he kind of now has gotten himself away from finishing other storylines that were there before he got control of Bruce Pritchard. And now here we are, and they're trying something, and we got ratings for Raw today. Last night's Raw was definitely one of the more interesting episodes of Monday Night Raw, as they tried several different things on the show, teased an invasion, a new faction made its presence felt, but you didn't get to exactly see a whole lot of them. They did burn stuff, and they liked flicker and cost someone a match and do some indirect things. A lot of teasing here. And it definitely gave you a sense of something's going to happen. Now, you didn't get to see them, so I can't say... I'll say this about the new faction thing. I didn't feel cheated. I didn't feel like, but I did feel like, oh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's around every corner? It had that fun anticipation. And I've learned this in different media classes. Anticipation is the currency in entertainment. You're buying viewers when you get them to anticipate something. And WWE, when it does it well, gets you to anticipate something. They've been able to get you to see some big moments. And this week, though, they did tell you Shane McMahon was going to be there, and he was bringing something with him. And what he brought with him was a fight club. He brought with him Kumite. He brought with him a wrestling ring without ropes. People right on top of the ring. Go-go dancers. Maybe this is something he did with Vinnie Mac's money back in the day in college. He had his own fight club in a warehouse. Our own Bill Pritchard tweeted that out. We got the debut of Raw Underground. And this was basically MMA style pro wrestling. Short, none of them really matches. They're more just like squashes. We got like 3 different segments of it. They teased it once. They went to it like 5 minutes early. They said they were going to go to it at 10 p.m. Eastern time. So 9 p.m. Central time. And when they went to it, they went to it about 5 minutes early. So that was a little off the execution. There were some other things I think they'll change about it, but I watched some clips of it again, and the second viewing, I enjoyed it more. And when I turned off Raw last night and got ready to do the podcast, I did find myself saying, like, I didn't get that faction. I want to see who they are, and I want to see more of this Raw Underground thing. And the Hurt Business took it over after they felt like they got kind of bamboozled earlier in the night. They got cheated out of some titles and fell short on a bunch of different things. So, yeah, Bobby Lashley in a fight club. He has an MMA background. And someone tweeted this to me this morning. I feel stupid not bringing it up. Is the Underground Fight Club of Raw Underground, is this the platform to finally get the long desired fan matchup of MMA Monster versus MMA Monster? Is this how you bring Brock Lesnar back? Because this seems like the perfect scenario to do it.
It does. It does seem like that. Someone tweeted that they kind of had I think I know who it was. Someone tweeted that they know that Brock this is not an in for Brock coming back. But it's a good setup for it. Yep. Honestly though,
if I'm Brock and I'm looking at this and I only wrestle a handful of times a year,
that
looks like a fun thing, and Brock's a guy where he will come back for matches he wants to do, if a match appeases him and interests him. He's a guy where if he wants to do a match, he'll do it. There's been matches you've seen him do in the last 8 years where he definitely seemed more motivated than others.
Yeah.
And he's a guy who likes himself some visceral violence. So this is definitely leaning into those things.
Here's something too. The Donald Cleveland of the chat also said, "Can we please acknowledge that Raw Underground directly ripped off Josh Barnett's Bloodsport?" So our editor Bill Pritchard made a tweet about that on our WrestleZone account as well. Yeah. So I watched it, and I did not watch Raw last night. So I had throughout that whole evening too. Kev, you know this too. There was speculation until they made this announcement that it was going to be like legit shoot fighting mixed in. So there was that kind of, thoughts going on.
And it wasn't. That wasn't legit shoot fighting. They were wrestling. And I'm fine with that.
Yeah, people were talking about it.
Yeah.
And, honestly, that would have been a horrible idea anyway. So to put it in regards to what they did, and watching it, I did end up watching the clips of Eric from the Viking Raiders, the invasion at the end by the Hurt Business, which, side note, I think Hurt Business is an excellent faction name. That's a great name. And then
I do like that is growing on me. And then the line, the catchphrase is "business is booming."
Yeah,
I thought that's kind of neat.
I think,
and MVP is a good talk piece. He's a good talking head.
Amazing. Like, he's doing a really good job. That being said, a lot of it, Shane as like the kind of like MC of it all, just really felt like this might be a little dated of a reference for some of our viewers, but Mark Summers on freaking Double Dare is how I envisioned. I was like, Shane McMahon, are they going to do a physical
the
challenge?
loser gets covered in gack.
Yeah, where's the sign coming from? Is it going to drop down? Very much. I was very, very skeptical going and watching it. I wasn't as disappointed as I thought I would be going in to see it. After I watched it, I feel they have a foundation for it. Now, I am skeptical of them staying consistent with it. What's going to happen week in and week out? Will they be able to cultivate that good kind of underground vibe that they're searching for? Because it was a little polished. The background music was unnecessary, but you have.
And I do think it'll look and feel different the more they do it. Yeah, and the more they settle into it. Yeah,
there was a lot. It's all about execution. It's all about.
There was a lot of fun things about it. I mean, if the idea of it is like we can't go somewhere else, let's try something else with what we have. I admire the production inventiveness of this. Of just like, hey, we have this other space. Let's and what we're doing at the Performance Center, and if the Performance Center looks sterile, there's something character driven about that area. And the fact that people were near the ring and there wasn't the hockey boards and it feels unregulated and there's no pins and there's no formal countouts or anything like that. And you just kind of see the fight end. If you want to do squash matches and really build a guy up who maybe isn't getting his opportunity in the WWE, but God damn it, he's getting it in the underground, and you get that other space that it is. And the same way that NXT was, where NXT felt separate. Now they're trying their best, and eventually it will. Just like us saying WWE, it took a while for us to get rid of saying out of our collective fan minds is saying WWF. If they can build underground up to something where you don't see it every week, but if you see it now and then, if you see it like you see Raw Roulette, or, like one of those devices, like a Money in the Bank or something like that, something that you see now and then. I think that's cool too. And I don't think that is, purposeful inconsistency where it's the McRib. You only get it now and then. And I'm okay with that. I know I'm making a McRib comparison there.
Oh, it's all right. They're the mainstream, I feel, with it, there is a lot, is this going to, now, how this got, announced and everything like that, 6 hours before Raw, you heard the talk beforehand that Raw was in utter chaos, but something like this, I think, was already in process before that chaos happened.
Now I connect the dots. You say utter chaos. My thing is, that strikes me as a production issue of like, how are we going to shoot this? What is this?
No. I'm not even talking about underground. Yeah. I'm talking about the rest of the show.
Oh, the show in general. Yeah.
Yeah. The show in general, how it was set up. As far as underground, I think that was kind of something that was already in place from what I heard, but with it, is this going to, what Vince has churned out. So you had 24. I'm just using these as examples. 24/7 title. You've had the wild card rule. You've had all this stuff that was implemented, but not really stuck with. Not sure. committed to. Not committed to. Is this going to be a Band-Aid on a gaping wound? Is this something that's immediate and then they don't know what they're going to do with it?
Yeah, let's pull back this proverbial curtain behind me. And I'm going to challenge you on something because you like a challenge, right?
I love a challenge. Like
you
Mark
love a
Summers,
challenge.
physical
All right.
talent.
And what camp of WWE are you in right now? Are you in a pro WWE camp or an anti WWE camp? We need to be clear about that before I go into this question. You're not happy with what they're doing overall, right?
Not whatsoever. Right? No. And I don't want to say, and that's not a bias or anything like that. I think that's just my
little bit. I'm teetering here. Okay, I'm on the fence.
There's, but you know what? If you're gonna look at it that way, they're the main product. They're the big dog, and they should be
judged
product.
on the biggest. They should have the biggest standard put against what they do all the time.
And so they're open to all types of criticism, and I'm more than willing. And knowing WWE's background, knowing how McMahon handles his business, and what is that bubble that gets put around it, and what they've put around for themselves, I am,
for lack of a better phrase, a bubble. Yes, for lack of a better phrase, a bubble. Right. Yeah,
I am going to criticize them to a T on everything because they're set up for that. That's what's going to happen. So. Anytime that they do this stuff and you hear this stuff come up where, stuff is in chaos, they're not planned. This is very reflective of late 90s WCW stuff that they were very willing to criticize in documentaries and everything like that. And they're ending up doing the same exact thing was what you're hearing backstage is going on, like stuff.
But it's 20 years ago. It's
20 years ago. 20 years ago. But
hang on.
You're repeating history. This is history that you should learn from, but you're not learning. So
but I also think it's adaptivity. The pandemic's changed viewing cycles completely, and that is across the board. I don't care what you're watching or how you're consuming anything. We saw the Raw number come in. The Raw number went up by about 100,000. They did a 1.7 rating. They scored well in the core demographic of males 18 to 34, and the overall audience they want to get of adults 18 to 49. So pretty good. They did pretty good in those numbers, but that's better than the numbers they had the previous weeks. Obviously, it isn't anything near their heyday. Yep. But it's worth noting for some people that don't want to claim to know the ratings. You're just looking at a core rating, just a simple 2-digit number. And if you look at their numbers overall and their revenue, they're bringing in bigger advertisers. I wonder if the Raw Underground concept is advertiser friendly, and if it's still if they want to get those people that think it's too PG, it's too clean, I want some grit. They did some of that gritty stuff on SmackDown on network TV with Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville and the Fiend taxing Alexa Bliss. And the idea is to balance things now. All right. Little bit of the grittiness. All right. Later in the show, we're going to give you that extra little something, and open the show with kind of mainstream across the aisle. Kids can love it. Women can love it. Guys can love it. At the end, we're going to give you the real shiz. Right. And I kind of think this is that moment of balance. Can we do ruthless aggression era type stuff where we give you a little enough of the edge with enough of the good guy versus bad guy style things. And the balance they're trying is lofty. It is a challenging concept. We heard about the chaos with the storylines and the scripts being torn up and all that stuff. But if this is the show, a 3-hour show that we got out of scripts being torn up at the last moment, a completely new concept being teased, fans talking about this show more than most news stories during a pandemic and trending number 2 in the world on Twitter, WWE is doing a fair job of just engaging their core audience with a fairly new concept. Now, if they keep doing it and it's interesting, I'm okay with that. If this is the concept you get out of things like this, like a new faction that we haven't seen, that we're excited to see, we're looking forward to what they're going to do with it the next week, what's the problem? I say let them do it before it fails. We're talking about people. We're talking about a movie sucking before we can even watch the trailer, really. We just got the teaser.
We got the teaser, and Kev, you might have liked the teaser. I did not like the teaser.
I didn't hate it. I just want to see more of it. I want to see where it goes.
I didn't like,
I didn't love it either. I'm not saying it's the best thing they've ever done. I mean,
I think it was actually really, really bad execution in regards, because you look, number one, they mentioned that a faction was brewing on their website. So, and then you open Raw with the lights flickering and Tom Phillips being like, "Oh, we're having weather issues and things like that." Well, you guys published a story about a faction potentially causing chaos coming up, and so why is there a weather excuse? That's not the case. And then later on they tip over boxes. They throw a cocktail at a generator, a Molotov cocktail at a generator. Mm-hmm. This is like stuff when the Riot Squad was previously going on, and they were causing backstage by like, tipping over, like spray painting a door or something like that. This is not stuff. It didn't raise a lot of like, oh my God, this faction. If you want to get like word out about this faction and like, are they really causing chaos? Have them beat up like a top star. Have them like knock like done. Bloody up.
If you do that, then it's just the Nexus again. If you do that, it's just the NWO.
You want chaos. Chaos is not tipping over boxes. Chaos is not like destroying it.
But it's like, are we going to do the same thing we've done before? I at least like the idea of trying something different. If we're going to introduce a new disruptive group, and guess what? Hardcore fans love themselves an invasion. It's the number one thing people ask me. Are they going to do? Is this group going to invade here? Is this guy going to show over? Not just show up. They're going to invade. They can't just show up. They have to invade. Always an invasion is the number one crutch that hardcore fans want to see. Everything has to be destroyed. All right. So that piques their interest. That's junk food for a hardcore fan who's been watching for 20 years. Right. I'm not opposed to it. I like the idea of them trying the idea of we don't have to give you everything right away, especially not on a 3-hour show that airs 52 weeks a year. Like that doesn't seem reasonable to give it all away.
No, but
right away.
You know what, Kev? I think they kind of cheated the fans out of it in a lot of ways.
I don't feel cheated. I don't feel cheated. We know there's a group of guys. We know they're burning something. We know they're causing problems. We don't know who they are. Why do we have to have the mask revealed right away?
But look, they really promoted it beforehand with the article and just the word getting out about it. And then you got like a maybe a minute total of like chaos that happened throughout the whole night. Like if you combine it all, it's just like that you set it up for fans to watch. And that was kind of it. It was, I don't think the execution of it was very, very good at all. And, didn't cause a lot of intrigue. This faction of chaos does not seem very chaotic or very.
We haven't really seen him do much yet.
Yeah,
we've seen just enough.
What we saw. It's
okay. This show's going to be there next week. It's like the idea, the concept of give me something that's built up, and I don't get all of it right away. It's a double-edged sword. Like, so do you want to go for the long payoff? Yeah. What if they do this at SummerSlam? What happens at SmackDown? You're giving me good questions and I'm excited to see the answers to. I'm anticipating something, okay? And I do look forward to this, okay? Like I look forward to who this group is going to be. And you've already have fans online still framing the pictures of those groups that burned down a generator on Raw. And this guy could be this guy from NXT and this could be a guy, or what if it's people that got released in April? Like, those are fun questions to answer. And I don't think there's anything wrong about that. And if you got fans talking like that, is it really not working then? Is it like, let me put it this way, and this isn't a shot at AEW. I didn't hear anyone until they started to tease the Exalted One, ask who's going to show up in the Dark Order. And this group isn't like a shot at Dark Order. I like Dark Order. They're fun. But guess what? I'm supposed to be scared shitless of them. And I'm not. And I'm supposed to be like the Undisputed Era. It's supposed to feel like killers that show up like a pack of wolves and tear somebody apart. Now you got to reboot those guys. This is a fresh group, a fresh shot, completely new playing field. And the idea of if they're just going to show up and attack somebody, they've done that with Nexus. They've done it with the NWO. Do something different. The Raw Underground is something different. Bringing SummerSlam to Atlantic City is something different. And I admire the idea of let's roll the dice hard. Not just one dice, let's roll all of it and put everything on the table and try something. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And I just admire the full-in opportunity to try something. Maybe it evolve and get better. I'm just not opposed to trying something new.
No, but like this is something that WWE should be doing. It's not something that like I admire or think that like this is what everybody like. If you're in a pandemic, you've been putting out consistent shows that kind of all look the same and all have the same vibe and atmosphere. You want to shake things up, and it's about. In my thoughts, it's about damn time to do it. And as far as like this faction too, it's like I could do the exact same thing that they did. I could go downstairs. I live in a building, like one apartment. I go down in the basement and just turn off all the breakers and cause chaos that way. Like it's, give me a little bit more. You want something that right now it's back to this category, and I'm not going to let them out of this category until they actually do something to change my mind. It's a Band-Aid on a gaping wound, what they're doing right now. So if we see it develop further week in and week out, instead of just throwing shit at a wall and seeing if it sticks, then you might have my interest, but you got to keep going with it. Until then, I'm skeptical as hell. So
you're going to stay skeptical. I'm going to stay open-minded. I like that we disagree. Obviously, you are fond of AEW, Dominic, and you have the two Dynamite Dudes with Attitudes every Friday. That is in one podcast feed. You don't have to subscribe to a bunch of different ones. Look for the WZ red and black logo like it's the Wolfpack in 96, and we are available on all the different podcast apps. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple, we're on Podcast Addict, which I think should maybe change your name, but that's a whole other issue. And of course, we're also available on YouTube and Facebook Watch. Thank you for enjoying the shows. And if you're a fan of AEW and you hate anything that Vince produces, like he's somebody you know on a first name basis, we have that for you every Friday. Let's talk about AEW. They got some like sort of challenging news from their media partner yesterday, and just when people think they're kind of hitting their stride, and oh boy, they got those ratings back from the evil WWE NXT, comes the possible burden that you had the whole time when you signed up with Warner Media that already has deals with the NBA and big sports leagues. They're going to get preempted a couple weeks. So this looks like it'll happen on four different Wednesdays in August and September, which is kind of a crunch because that puts them right around their big show All Out, which will be September 5th. It's a big pay-per-view they're doing. And so here we are. This will move AEW Dynamite to select Saturday nights. Saturday night is a tough night to be on television. And it is a tough night to be on like cable. It's one thing to do like a premium show or pay-per-view. You're really only shooting for like your core fans to get to, maybe convert some casuals over. That's pay-per-view. That's what it is, right? That's what that network is too. So this is a tough spot. It also puts them, interestingly, it'll put an hour head-to-head of AEW Dynamite on free TV with WWE NXT TakeOver. Just an hour. The shows won't go. If you like watching both, you'll clearly be able to watch both and not have a problem. Yeah, good for you. More for the fans, right? So what do you think of this year? This is a tough situation, especially when they're starting to really get an edge with that rating. People thought maybe they would clip a million before the end of the summer. This is a challenging thing. I think they'll be okay though. Overall, I think TNT is on board with it in the long term. Yeah. But obviously it's hard to say that you want to compete with the NBA right now.
Yeah, NBA is the king on TNT, and it's been for years. So I think Tony Khan and AEW all knew about this going into the thing. Hey, we're going to get preempted. It's going to happen. And, obviously you don't know, nobody knew anything about a pandemic happening. So all that getting adjusted and everything like that coming into play. Mm-hmm. But,
and you had a completely delayed season too with the NBA. I mean, really, you had the NBA moving their schedule around. They didn't have 3 months of a season. So
what was going to happen too, if you think about it, what was going to happen too if the playoffs ended up happening at the appropriate time when they should have happened and all that stuff? Mm-hmm. Preempted stuff would have happened for AEW. So this is kind of just going in. They knew it. It's a fair trade. Heck, you get re-signed for 4 years they signed a deal for 4 years with TNT and everything. It's all fine. This is all, it's par for the course. It's crappy because you might be kicking up some momentum here and getting some people tuning in, and you see this like by the numbers, the numbers are shifting a little bit too in a positive direction for them.
But my issue is it isn't just like one, it's four. It's like four separate. It's four of them, and then the issue. It's not obviously TNT and Warner are going to have their back on this in some way, and have signed them for the long term, as you mentioned. But what's a bigger fish? It's the NBA. It's there's different advertisers, there's different ratings. The ratings for those NBA games are going to be bigger than AEW Dynamite. There's not a shot at them or anything they can do. It just is what it is. And if you're AEW and you get the rub of being promos and different things like that, I guarantee AEW is going to try and do some type of play-in content or something, or they're going to put something out on Wednesdays online in some way to suffice fans. But it is a thing where I'm like, what are those ratings going to be like in September when they get back into a roll? And also, Rumar bringing this up, Rumar texting in saying likely NBA playoffs will not only affect AEW show, but the ratings will affect NXT as well. That's another thing to mention here as well, is that NXT is going to have to go up against NBA games if they're not opposed. And those games won't air on an NBC Universal channel like USA, AEW with Warner Media and TNT. It's definitely a challenge here. It's definitely a challenge for NXT. I wonder what their numbers are going to look like up against an NBA game. But not having AEW on a Wednesday night could be good for them. So if wrestling kind of retains 70% of its audience on a Wednesday, then NXT could do pretty well if it isn't that bad. Now, if it's a complete blowout and the NBA games are really interesting, then it's a different story. From what I've seen from the NBA games that have come back and been in the bubble, a lot of the games haven't been that great. They've just kind of been like, they don't feel like they're playing at the same pace or something like that. But playoffs are interesting. Once we get to the playoffs, I wonder what those games are going to be like and how they could affect things. Also, a different flex schedule, especially when you're playing games without arenas and you're playing in one specific location. Are those games going to be played during the day? Are they going to move games to a different night? That's been talked about specifically with the NBA and the NHL. NHL, obviously, I don't think will affect WWE nearly as much. But WWE does have to look at that situation, especially with NHL being in bed with NBC Sports. So there's a lot of different challenges here, especially with the other league kind of moving their schedules around. And I was kind of worried, especially for AEW, that they would get bit by this. Now, mind you, if we didn't have a pandemic, you wouldn't have NBA games on right now. So that's another thing where this could be the biggest blow to them with the pandemic. They circumstantially, the deck got shuffled and they came out with Daily's Place and they had an open air venue. That was actually kind of helpful to them. And if one of the big companies in the United States gets to do shows in front of real fans, I actually think it'd be AEW first because they have an open air venue and they could, maybe push those things. And they've already done it. They've already had fans at their shows, and they've done it quietly with very, very little publication of it, to the point where I've had some people tell me that they didn't want to say they went to the show because they were asked not to say they went to the show. That's another thing. I've had some fans say, "Oh, I went to a show, but I was told not to." Don't say anything about it for a while. You can say it, but wait a while. So I've talked to some people about that, where they're like, yeah, you can say it, but just be cool, like that type of thing, where it's like, all right, what you're not saying is a whole lot louder than what you are. So there's a lot of maneuvering here. I think both sides are trying their best to do something really entertaining. I think NXT is the most consistently entertaining brand for WWE, and AEW has a lot of hot hands right now. Especially there's some when NXT was getting them out of that kind of late June time. I really think they've kind of settled into some fun lanes. It looks like we'll have some great matches on All Out. What do you think AEW this week tomorrow night?
I think it's going to be an interesting show. You got the world title match with Darby Allin and Jon Moxley. You have the debates between Jericho and Orange Cassidy. You have the 12-man tag match, which I think will play into some interesting storyline in regards to how FTR wants to wrestle tag matches and how the Young Bucks tend to wrestle tag matches. I think they'll play into that story a little bit of work style and everything like that. Then you also have there's another couple big matches on there I can't think of right now, but it's I think they set themselves up pretty nicely for tomorrow night. And but Marcus and I talked about it last week. The opening for last week's Dynamite was not. I did not like it. Marcus did not like it.
The 10-man tag match.
10-man tag match. It just was very
all over the place. That was all over the place.
Super disorganized. Did not. I think it exemplified. I said this to Marcus too. I think it exemplified everything that's wrong with AEW currently. Yeah. What they're doing wrong and what needs to be adjusted. And
it struck me as one of the most indulgent things I've seen them do.
Yes.
Where
you had common spots. You had too much like high flying stuff that really did not make sense and didn't line.
Nothing settled into a lane. It was
all over the place.
The chip was being dipped in every different bowl, and
yes,
yeah. And it was just like, we only got 2 hours. Let's try and get as many guys on TV as we can.
I was itching for that episode too. Like I was very excited for that episode going in, but then tuning into it and seeing that match, it was a little bit of a deflator going in for the rest of the show. I thought they did rebound with some good matches. The main event I thought was great with Brian Cage, Ricky Starks against Moxley and Darby Allin. I thought that was great. I thought a lot of the other matches that they had were very well done and executed. The storyline with FTR joining up with potentially Arn Anderson and Hangman Page kind of in the mix. I thought that was very, very cool. So they did leave a lot of good stuff. Warhorse, I thought, made the most of his opportunity, and I less satisfied with that match too, and what they did with that too. And
the crazy thing about last week, and this is just following the show and how people reacted to it online, was they had two big former WWE names show up on the show, and obviously that'll stir the WWE side of things, and people will be like, oh, once again, the casual fans that just watch WWE will be like, all right, well, I'll check out that AEW show I've heard about. And you would think Zack Ryder showing up on another show, Matt Cardona, showing up on AEW would be a big story in comparison to what we actually saw online. Was that Arion Andrews? Am I saying that correctly? I always feel like I'm messing up.
Yeah, I think Arion. No, is it? I don't know how to say
Andrew.
it.
The formerly known as Cameron.
That's why I call her Cameron.
All right, I'm sorry to go with the show name. I never want to mess up someone's name. It's the one thing I feel I do all the time, and I always worry that I'm doing it. Whatever. So Cameron of Total Divas fame shows up, and they put her in the Deadly Draw tournament. I want to talk to you about that.
Sure, yeah.
And that gets on Twitter 7 times the traffic for WrestleZone than Zack Ryder showing up. And mind you, Zack Ryder got like 25,000 impressions in 15 minutes for us. Cameron showing up got like 90,000 impressions in an hour and a half. And it was probably one of the most retweeted things we've seen all month. The Total Diva Collective really showed up for her. And it was not something I saw coming. And it's definitely one of the most surprising things I've seen online with wrestling fans. And we start to look at those numbers, especially on Wednesday night, because you're talking about the hardest of the hardcore fans. People are going to pick their side and say, this is the horse I'm with in the race. And I was very surprised by that. Very, very surprised by that. Yeah. So AEW doing some things. NXT quite interesting this week. They're building up to the upcoming Triple X NXT takeover. I was hoping we would get a Vin Diesel reference. We gotta get some, Vin Diesel. Yeah. But they're building up some pretty cool matches. In retrospect, I did think it was kind of weird they took the North American title off Keith Lee, but they're trying to build a bunch of new names with it. So they are investing. They aren't playing the short term. They're playing the long term and trying to really rise some names up. A Dexter Lumis, a Bronson Reed, the thick boy. He wants the thick boyhood dream. I thought that was a fun play on the Shawn Michaels thing they did last week. And they had some really, really fun matches. They had some surprising finishes and some surprising things. So they're trying to keep you on your toes. And I enjoyed that. They're building up to this ladder match in a few weeks. It doesn't seem like they've rebooted the Undisputed Era, but they do have themselves in a tag team situation. I will say this. I definitely enjoyed the tag teams more on AEW recently than NXT. And NXT has some good teams. They just haven't been featured that much. No. And Imperium showed up last week, and they were successful in action, only to be laid out by the Undisputed Era. I'm excited to see Kyle O'Reilly back in the WWE. He is a guy who does have a very publicly stated diabetic diagnosis, and that would put him in an immune compromised situation. So definitely you have to be selective when you have that guy in the ring. Him and Bobby Fish of the Undisputed Era will take on Imperium on this week's NXT. That was just confirmed recently. I'm looking forward to that match. I actually think that'll be the match to see. Keith Lee will take on Cameron Grimes, the NXT champion. Poor Cameron Grimes looks like he's going to be the new Heath Slater of WWE. A fun, dynamic character. But you need some people to take the fall. Like he feels like a Marco stunt, like just a guy can show up and run with his ball, but he's not going to be your featured player. Keith Lee needs that going into this big confrontation with Karrion Kross. We'll also see Rhea Ripley take on Dakota Kai. And this is the winner will challenge Io Shirai for the NXT Women's Championship. That seems like we're definitely going to get an idea of things. Something makes me think they're going to go with Dakota Kai there as a heel going up against Io Shirai. I think you can hold off in the Rhea Ripley match. And who will join that North American title ladder match at TakeOver? It will be Oney Lorcan, along with the newly debuting Ridge Holiday. Holiday. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly.
Is it Holland? Is it Holland?
Holland, yes. So Ridge, let's go with that. And Punishment Martia. So they've been doing triple threat matches with these. And it's kind of easy. You can one guy takes the loss, and that doesn't seem as bad. Can kind of sneak out and still protect him there. I've enjoyed the matches on NXT. I've enjoyed the angles on AEW. We are a spoiled bunch. With what we get offered on both channels on Wednesday nights. So if you're complaining, dude, come on, just watch Wednesdays. If you just want the good stuff, you got 4 hours of it from 2 different companies on Wednesday, and it is consistently strong. in my opinion. And even the stuff I don't like is still not that bad, you know? So definitely check that out. We will have a live show afterwards. It's, you know, we talk about AEW and NXT. We always get people trashing one or the other here. Text it in. We have some people with questions here. Big fan of the show. He's with us on every single episode. I absolutely love this man. James Espanto Fernando Tagoai.
Very nice.
James texts in. That was a good one. I got to pound the chest more. James texts in and says, would a move of NXT and AEW to a different day during the NBA season work? Well, just so we're clear, we did talk about this a little while ago. If you're joining us on the podcast or if you downloaded this podcast and just fast forwarded to this random part of the show, but if you're watching the live stream, yeah, we did talk about this. AEW is going to be affected on 4 different Wednesday nights by the NBA seasons and different things kind of popping up there in the middle of the summer. Would a different night work for them? I don't know. I think Wednesday night's a good night. They've invested some time there. You do have a pattern of around, and it's worth noting with these ratings are not entirely accurate. They're really representative of maybe 20 or 30% of the people that are actually watching. So these shows probably have a bigger audience than they normally do compared to others, but you know, it's doing pretty well for medium level shows that have a built-in audience. They're not as big as Raw and SmackDown. I don't think they need to be, but advertisers have a desire for relatively first run programming that is sports oriented. And that's what you're getting with wrestling. And that's what they're playing to, because the advertising dollars have changed over the last few years. I don't think them changing to a different night would be a good idea. I think them staying on Wednesdays is the best. But if you need to move for the NBA season, I don't think Saturdays is the good night to be on. If I was AEW, I'd love to be on a Friday night. I think a Friday night would be a good slot for them. But also you have those NBA games. Those are going to be spread out. They're going to be in a bubble. They're going to want everyone to be able to, so it doesn't give you the flexibility when they're all playing from relatively one space. They have multiple courts. I know that. But they're not going to do as many of those games in that one space. It's not like what Major League Soccer has, where they have multiple fields and they can do it. NBA, I think they have 2 or 3, but they're doing the deep cleaning thing. They're doing all of that. Then you have to have people practice and you have to go through the protocol. And so it's a little bit more challenging. And I think TNT is going to bend over backwards to give NBA whatever they want.
Yeah. Can you hear me, Kev? I know you lost my signal here.
A little bit. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine, but my visual feed went out, I think.
You just want to reboot, buddy? You want to reboot and just hop back in here?
Yep, jump right back in. Just give me a second.
No problem. I'm going to actually out you just jump back in, okay?
Okay.
All right. So we'll jump into your questions here as we wait for Dom to rejoin us here in just a moment, and hopefully he'll be able to hop back in. Hopefully you guys are hearing us as well. Jumping into your questions and different things like that. If you guys have any here for us on a Tuesday, we are covering several stories, as we mentioned earlier in the show. The potential of WWE bringing SummerSlam to Atlantic City in New Jersey. That would be interesting. The growing changes in WWE with Raw Underground and so much more. And of course, everything going on in the world of wrestling beyond WWE. If you have questions about all of it and you're with us live, go ahead and shoot them off. Benjamin A. Jones texting and saying the NBA sucks. I don't think it sucks. I think it's fine. You don't have to say that. Also, people texting about Impact. Impact is a brand that is starting to make their changes known and make adjustments in the world of wrestling and COVID-19, filming their shows in the Nashville area. They have a new champion in Eddie Edwards. Good on them. They're trying some stuff. They're moving the needle. They got EC3. You know, they got Brian from the Major Brothers there. I mean, they're trying some stuff here, man. They got Gallows and Anderson, who won their debut against Ringo City, I believe was the name of the group. So if you have questions, go ahead and fire them off if they're with us live, and Dominic will hopefully here in a minute. This question, I'm trying to pull this up on screen here. What would you think of AEW trying to have their version of Saturday Night Main Event? Well, it definitely seems like we're going to get something like that. This is an interesting time for those AEW shows that are coming up here later in the month of August that will not air on Wednesday night. These are games, as I mentioned, they're going to be they're preempted on Wednesdays, and they're going to be moved to Saturday night. So for these shows, that'll start with August 22nd will be one of those, and that'll actually put them head to head with NXT TakeOver. It's definitely an interesting situation there of what could be with this with the show. Where they go head to head will be something. You will get a main event top heavy show, and NXT will try and have something on in that hour that'll be interesting as well. This question kind of coming in here, Dom. He's going to pop back in with that's just here in a minute. Dom, on this upcoming night here, the 22nd, this will be the second of those preempted AEW weeks where they'll be on Saturday night. They'll go up against NXT TakeOver. That's a challenging situation because you're not going completely up against them. You're only going to have an hour where they'll be with each other there. And WWE will kind of start as AEW's in the middle of their show. It's another situation. It's a takeover. It's not just another NXT show. And is AEW going to try and do something on those shows that makes them feel bigger? But the problem is you're just a few weeks out from All Out where you're asking people to pay for money. This puts AEW in a really challenging situation. And I'm excited to see how they respond to it.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, even just if they overlap an hour with one another or something. Yeah, you know, how do you play that? How do you play that checker game there happening? Are you gonna put some stuff in there to create a little intrigue? I figure to an extent they will, but I don't think, pun intended, I don't think they'll go all out. I think they'll definitely play close to the vest and just lay out some smart storytelling. It's ultimately what you want to do, and hopefully that might entice some people to watch, and especially that. Maybe that delay of not necessarily getting your Dynamite fix on Wednesdays and having to wait till Saturday, that also might cause people to itch a little bit more to tune into Dynamite on a Saturday, honest takeover Saturday. And maybe if they even throw out a little treat for viewers, a surprise of some sort or something to really rope them in. They'll
do something different. They'll do something different to get people they'll do something different for the people like, all right, you hung around for a couple extra days and here, we're going to give you something. And I do, as I mentioned earlier, they'll do something on Wednesdays online. You'll get something.
Sure.
Online.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about something that they did do online. This is the women's tag team tournament, the Deadly Draw. This is there's a tournament they're doing exclusively on YouTube. I believe the finals of this will be on, will this be on Dynamite or will this be on All Out?
That's a good question.
They didn't. I don't think they clearly mentioned that. A lot of people are assuming. Yeah.
No, I was thinking of the tag team appreciation. I was thinking that was going to be on the same Dynamite as the Jericho. I don't know when it's going. I don't know if it's. I can't give you a clear answer if it's going to be.
Well, that's fine. I mean, they did last night. Got around 300,000 views. Pretty healthy. Pretty healthy. Debut of a new show. This isn't AEW Dark. Which feels like their velocity, their heat, like here's, and that's nothing wrong about that. Like, it's definitely less than Dynamite, and that's okay. Like the main event is less than Raw. I don't even know what happened on main event this week, right? I don't think there's no shot. Like, it's just, all right, you want another hour of wrestling, here you go. But this is different. This is something that's like, it's a limited run. It's a tournament. Either stakes. They did it. I enjoyed some of it. Some of it felt blah blah in the ring. We did get to see Arian Andrew tag with Nyla Rose. She was not successful. But it does seem like we're gonna get more of her.
Do we? I don't know. That's the question I'm left.
Do you think it's a one and done?
She could be a one and done. It could happen. That could be it.
And AEW's had those. They've had those kind of people come in and do a couple shots, and they have name value. Jeff Cobb from Ring of Honor came over and did some stuff, and we didn't see much of him. Mind you, then the pandemic hit. Who knows? There's some people that say they don't want to, go for a big move and change all that stuff. So that's another story. We did see an interesting thing. Allie and Brandy Rhodes. This tournament is set up of a random draw. A random draw. You draw a color. Whoever gets the other same color, that's your tag team partner. Tell me how the branding manager, executive of the company, tags with someone they've already tagged with and then gets seconded by not just one guy, but two guys outside the ring. This match, it was fine, but there was so much noise outside of the actual bell-to-bell thing that I didn't even know the story was that Allie does all the work and Brandy gets the pin until they did a post-match promo. There were so many things going on that didn't have anything to do with the match during the match that I forgot what the story was. And then we get backstage, and then I'm like, that's the story? Okay. And then on top of it, there was a promo. Tell me, let's stay on this Brandy thing. They flip-flopped her how many times in a year now? Is she a heel? Is she a babyface? She was like running a goth group for a while. Like that was the one thing too, that Nightmare Collective. They pulled the plug on that real quick, right? They snipped the legs out from that. And Brandy definitely is somebody who has a following online, and she was even bragging about it last night. Is like, this is a reason why I have an action figure and all this stuff. And certainly her being a part of, Cody's rise to power, all these fun things mentioned. But this is a character you've changed 3 times in a year, and we're not hitting a stride in the ring in terms of like big banger matches, right? It's fun. She's a fun wrestler. I'm not saying she's a bad wrestler. No. But the match was fine. There was a bunch of different things going on around it. It was overbooked. And then I'm supposed to find out what happens afterwards. And this is the first episode of the show. I was like, what is going? It was confused. It was borderline WCW 2000 to me in terms of just someone's got to step in and say, this here, we're focusing on this because it's a new concept. It really struck me as confusing.
It certainly can be, and especially with the frequency of the turns that has been happening with Brandy. I think this is relatively just like a new development overall. Like this a new that promo was the first indicator of it all. Yeah, certainly you want.
But the promo made more sense than what happened in the ring.
I agree with that. No, I agree with that. 100%. And I think it's the appropriate direction to take with Brandy. Her fully embracing like the branding officer, but also like, hey, I'm making the most of this, and this is who I am. Like making it a heel attribute is very akin to Britt Baker heelishly embracing, hey, I'm a dentist finally, instead of like, that's a babyface part of her is that she's hey, did you know she's a dentist? Well, Brandy, we know now is the branding officer. Let's make that part of her heel persona, and I think it's an appropriate direction to have her take.
Let's stick with it though. That's my thing.
Let's ride this one out this time.
Yeah, let's stick with something. It was, and it didn't do a favor to anyone else in the tournament. That's something you're going to feature then, because then you're sacrificing other people to keep that storyline going. To do that means they got to keep winning. So I'm like, all right. Okay. And it was definitely like, Yeah. And also you had Vicky Guerrero and Nyla Rose. You think they would have wrecked through people, and they're not winning. So I was surprised they went with them. That you have a different team winning and going with them. I'm sorry, their name eludes me. It was definitely like, there was a lot of like
Taya Conte and Anna Jay.
Yes. Thank you. And they went with them, and they were definitely like a matter of, we don't like each other, we're being paired together. All right, that's the storyline of the tournament. Okay, that makes sense. One of them's in the Dark Order, one of them's not. Hey, maybe you should join the Dark Order. You're new here. We should like, I was like, all right, good. That's development. I like that. Well, cool. Maybe they're gonna get somebody. The Dark Order came out with her, and I was like, all right, and then they left, and they didn't take the shine away from the match. It was weird. That was weird good. I don't want weird bad. So there was plenty with it. But it definitely doesn't make me want to. Here's the thing. If I have a choice between watching that or some classic stuff on the network, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna watch some old stuff on the network, or I'll watch Dark. So it worried me here, especially when it's a short run thing. You're only going to have it on for a while. And big critique people say is AEW has to do more for their women's division. I absolutely agree with that. I think they definitely need to do more.
I think that's across the board. Everybody.
And that's the point of this tournament. That's the point of this tournament, But then they go and do the one thing I was like, please don't make Brandy the centerpiece of this thing. And it was like, Brandy's the centerpiece.
Honestly,
of this thing.
I think she'll be a part of it. And she'll be one of a primary focus of it. I don't think she'll just be the only centerpiece, and I think that really sets up. And it's
a tournament, so you're going to have other people featured. So,
and I think what it sets up is, I thought it was great that Nyla Rose and Arian got eliminated just right off the bat, because you can really put the focus on Nyla Rose on your top women's program going on at the moment. But this is another opportunity to highlight a lot of the talents that we haven't seen or have yet to see, and get them a chance to kind of showcase themselves on a level to. And Nyla Rose made an excellent tweet yesterday. People were like, "Hey, you guys should be on Dynamite. This all should happen on Dynamite." And she's like, "We're working towards that. This is the step in the right direction for it."
Yeah.
You know,
that's the 2020 thing. Is I want it now. I have Netflix. Exactly. I can watch any movie now.
I mean, you know? And like, you know, you can obviously AEW has not done the job that they should have been doing with the women's division at this point in time. Like,
it's also like they're a new brand. You know,
they're behind on the 8 ball with it. Yeah.
With WWE, it's like this is something they've been working on for 5 years now to treat the women, to give the women a much more of a spotlight, not treat them like a side attraction on the show. And obviously you can see it now. They're settled in. Like seeing women in the main event on Raw or SmackDown is not a groundbreaking thing. It was, and that is significant cultural progress within wrestling. I'll at least acknowledge that. And when I go to an indie show and I see women in the main event, yeah, but like 10 years ago, it was like, what? Like, no, it's fine. But AEW has not done the same length just because they're a new company and they're just trying to get going. So I don't hold it against them.
I know. And there's the aspect too that goes into play where pandemic happened. You don't have all your talent necessarily there, so you're missing out. You're missing out on like B. Priestley, other women that have established themselves. So you're working with a lot of raw talent still as regards to women in AEW. So you're laying the groundwork.
COVID-19 is the asterisk of any problem in wrestling in 2020. You can put it right next to anything, right?
Yeah.
But there was COVID-19. Why did Undertaker not have his final match in front of live people? COVID-19. I do want to get into this. I got some questions coming in, and we'll jump into a couple more questions here before we end the show. Do you want to talk about Ring of Honor or a company that you have personal professional knowledge of, MLW? I think you want to talk about MLW, right?
Oh, yeah. You know, I would talk about MLW all the time, right. The whole program.
So, Dom, MLW news? Question mark. What's up with MLW, Court Bauer, Major League Wrestling? I do hear some rumblings. They did sign a new streaming distribution deal with a group called Wave to get them on. Wave kind of feels similar to like what if you know what Pluto TV is, where it's kind of like channels and different things like that. I took a peek at it. It looks like a different decent platform. Not super popular, obviously, because I'm just hearing about it for the first time. But what's the latest with MLW? Obviously, they're one of the companies that went completely dark for many, many months, but we're starting to get in this lane now where people are like accepting the idea that the pandemic is a thing and we're going to have to figure out a way to adapt to it. What's the latest with MLW?
So, yeah, you mentioned Wave. That Wave apparently got, I want to say it was 3.8 million in funding extra. Or I could be way up. Now, these numbers are way off in between one another. So it's either 3.8 million. I don't have the numbers in front of me.
They got an injection of funds.
Yes. They got a wealthy injection of funds. Wave did. And that happened in March. And so then they hit the MLW and them form a partnership. So they have set themselves up very nicely for something to happen further down the line on social media platforms and everything like that. But a little bit of information, if you haven't been online or on social media, MLW tweeted out a picture earlier in this week of an empty ring with lights and the Fusion on their big screen. What I immediately thought when I saw that is empty arena fights, empty arena matches again. And, you know, Fusion has not done that. They've waited till, they took off all their live stuff and their tapings and everything like that. But I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I have no inside information as regard of if that is indeed the case, but that image itself, and it was retweeted by several talents. I believe Alexander Hammerstone, Filthy Tom Lawler. I retweeted it. I'm not a talent, but I retweeted it. And it just looks very intriguing.
Your company's stooge, Dom.
Take it. Take it for what it is. I'm all right with being
No, I'm messing with you. To make it clear,
hey, I accept it. I'll be.
No. To make it clear, Dominic writes content for MLW.com.
Yeah,
so
They and you know what I've been writing to is the MLW Underground MLW underground.
They were underground before Raw.
They were underground way before this whole Raw thing happened. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool because if you are a fan of like ECW and stuff like that, it very much has that raw, very underground, very gritty type of feel to that presentation.
I would also say it's more akin to New Japan than even I think there was plenty of fans that saw AEW coming up, and obviously, you have the Bucks, you have Kenny Omega, you have Cody, all these guys that foreign talent that you'd seen make it in New Japan Pro Wrestling, right? And Ring of Honor. People thought like, AEW is going to be like a big budget version of those, or a more American version, or just something like Ring of Honor but feels bigger, or New Japan but feels big. I think MLW does a better job of that stylistically and presentation wise. Also, MLW deceptively was like, before the pandemic, I can tell you from going to their shows, had a huge Latin American market to them.
Oh yeah,
and like was, I would say, next to WWE, was probably the biggest Mexican American wrestling promotion in terms of the crowd. When I went to shows in Chicago, they were drawing 2,300 people in a gym. That's 2,300 people. That's a WWE house show number. Okay, that's an AEW number. Okay, I went and saw AEW in Champaign, Illinois, Tony Khan's backyard, and they were stretching and papering to get 3,500 people and a 14,000 seat basketball arena for the University of Illini, right?
Yeah.
And they squared some things off and made it look good. It didn't feel empty, but you could see seats, right? And it's no shot at them. You can look at the TV. WWE does it all the time, right? But MLW is like, no, we're gonna be in venues we know we can sell out. We're gonna have you right on top of the ring. We're gonna tell you to bring your noisemakers that you would bring to a Lucha Libre show.
Yeah.
And also they were doing ring announcements between segments they would film. They would do them in English and in Spanish. And I was just like, that's clever. They have the show in English and in Spanish. I was like, right away. And WWE does that too. Obviously, this is WWE having decades of television, international distribution. AEW now just having those different deals. But I was very marveling about how MLW really embraced that idea that we're going to be on Desportes. We have with BN Sports, we're gonna be on different language barriers. We're gonna go right to that right away, and that helped them get international distribution almost relatively right out of the gate. So good on them.
What's cool too. Let me add this too. Is something with Chicago, those noisemakers and everything like that. That's what made that particular atmosphere and venue for MLW. Cicero. What's the
Cicero Stadium? Which is not a stadium. They call it a stadium. They call it a stadium, but it's like imagine like a really nice YMCA.
Okay.
That's what it is. And it looks really cool. And there's been wrestling there for decades. And it's a venue that you can get to pretty accessibly. There's plenty of good venues in Chicago for wrestling, and that is one of the better ones.
And it created a unique, one-of-a-kind atmosphere that you don't get in wrestling as of late. So not only that, but the no ring ropes and the ring posts, kind of what, and then I'm not saying that they like saw MLW and this is exactly what happened, but months before this happened last night, they had a match between Davey Boy Smith Jr. and NXT's very own Timothy Thatcher. MLW did on Fusion with no ring ropes, all mat wrestling, all that stuff happened. I'm sorry, it wasn't Timothy Thatcher. It was Simon Gotch. Simon Gotch was who his opponent was. But
an NXT name. I can understand the flippy flop there.
Yeah, sure. So just wanted to lay that out there for you guys.
Sure.
He's a little ahead of the curve.
No. Just put a thin veil over your fist while you punch somebody and say that stuff.
Right.
It's fine.
Right.
I understand. We can see the shot coming. You're just saying, I'm not taking a shot. I'm not taking a shot. I'm not. What is the line in The Simpsons where it's just like, I'm gonna start kicking air, and if you get in the way, it's your fault.
Your fault. Yeah, right.
All that good stuff here. I'm trying to find one more question that is.
What was the ROH thing? Was it who's the booker?
Well, people asking if Ring of Honor has a new booker. We can say that we have heard rumblings, And this is from Brian Zane. Brian Zane is a popular YouTube personality. He's a wrestling manager along the Mid-Atlantic, but is also an on-screen presenter, backstage interviewer, if you will. You know him as Wrestling with Regret. Very popular YouTube channel. Check out his stuff. It's fun. And he'll do gaming. He was playing like a WCW Revenge mod that a fan made. And he's like, I'm going to play it. I'll play it on my channel. But it's really good. It was just fun to, and on it, someone asked him, is Ring of Honor coming back? And he said it like it was very casual. And it was the first time I heard it, that Ring of Honor is working on doing television tapings. This will be their first TV tapings in over 4 months, I think, is sometime within the month of August, early September. They're owned by Sinclair Broadcasting, so a big group with a lot of channels and the potential to do something there. And they have a lot of people. They have signed some guys recently under contract, and they've paid talent during the pandemic. It's worth noting. They did not furlough people. So I've heard that from some people as well, that they feel like, oh, I'm getting my guarantee, so that's kind of surprising. But there is the speaking out situation, and speaking out had widespread effects on NXT UK. WWE came in there and seemingly cleaned house. There's several different European promotions that were affected by that. One of the big names from Europe is the big name in Ring of Honor. That would be the villain Marty Scurll. Now, Marty came out and addressed these things, and basically, specifically, his situation was very much a relationship with someone underage, and it was unclear what the legality of that was. It wasn't that gray, and it didn't look that good. Now, this hasn't been brought to court, but it has been very, very public, and Marty has addressed it. Now, Marty, though, in staying with Ring of Honor just about over a year ago, a lot of people think, oh, it's just a matter of time. He's going to go join his elite bros over in AEW. That's a given, right? That's a given. And the biggest surprising story for Ring of Honor in the past year was that Marty didn't leave. He stayed. But he stayed with the biggest caveat ever of creative control, and that he would become one of the executive producers and one of the big creative minds in Ring of Honor. And maybe they were primed to finally set those things right, that they made it big mistakes. Their biggest show ever, Madison Square Garden with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and all the different hype they had coming out of that with Enzo and Cash showing up. They weren't able to secure those guys and make that deal happen. Enzo ran their name through the mud last night on the nationally known Busted Open. Really just read them a riot act and talked about how disappointed he was with how they handled that, because they were trending number one against the WWE Hall of Fame across town and WrestleMania weekend. Marty Scurll with the book there, but this whole scenario sets it back. So I'm catching you guys up there. What I think is going to happen. There's a whole lot of I don't know, but I can definitely tell you I don't think Marty Scurll is going to be the head booker of that company.
I don't think so either. I agree with you. I feel this is something that ROH wants to kind of sweep under the rug and hope people forget about it, and I don't think that's going to happen. You can't you have this.
I wouldn't know if they want to sweep it under the rug, but the thing is, you're in this tough situation with the speaking out thing where some of those stories were definitely clear. There was wrongdoing. And Marty is a guy. This one is. Yeah. This one is. But also, Marty hasn't been brought to court on anything. And there hasn't been a legal hammer come down on him. So do you fire a guy? There is that weird space. And it shouldn't be that hard to say. All right, we're getting rid of this guy. But we haven't heard anything with him. And I wonder if there is a legal fight that's being put up to maybe keep him under contract or fight for it or fight for his name or different things like that. We haven't seen anything yet. So it's definitely a wait and see situation. But I would say right now, you're going to wait a long time before you ever see Marty Scurll really have. And the thing is, he didn't even get an opportunity to really start building stuff up then. It wasn't in terms of the angles or storylines that you want to present. So we don't even know what he would do as the top company.
The thing is, the big glaring issue is, if you're doing TV tapings and everything like that, and he is your head booker, he admitted to being with an underage girl, whether that's legal or not in the UK, it's still underage.
Optics, bro. Optics. Doesn't look good.
And it's not good. And And his apology, too, was not good either. Was it even an apology? I can't even, looking back at it, did he even necessarily apologize? It seemed very in that regards to a lot of those apologies that we got with those speaking out people that were accused and a lot of their admissions that they came to. It seemed a lot of that in that realm, and was not a good apology if there was one at all. So that you have all that set up for ROH in regards to what they're going to do. Yeah, I agree with you, Kev. He's not going to be the head booker. It's not going to happen. I can't imagine.
Unless he can vindicate his name in some way, or
how though?
Yeah, how?
How?
And there are guys that have. That's worth noting. There are some guys in this wave of different things. People just think lights off on that guy. There's some people that have. And that's a pressure cooker of a situation for us to report. So we kind of have to wait for that information to really line up. And that was a very challenging time to cover wrestling, by the way, with that going on. I applaud Bill Pritchard and Tyler and everybody at WrestleZone. And I'm not saying like, oh, us feel bad. No, it's really the people that are involved. Like, do you want to misreport information that deeply affects two different sides of people? Someone who did something wrong and someone who had serious wrong things done to them. And now it's in this public space, and it's trial by media and all these different things. So there was a lot of pressure on us to make the right moves, and I think we handled it well.
Bill handled it very smartly, like very wisely. I thought he played. We played the field. We made sure it was okay.
I remember that first day we were on a text chain for like what felt like 8 hours.
Yeah.
And it was just like, let's put the brakes on it. Let's not say anything until we kind of things settle in. All right, 4 hours in, we know enough. Let's go. We know enough to go with these things. We didn't go with the knee-jerk reactions to every different thing here. Right. Someone who was accused of these situations several years ago and was released from WWE at maybe just the downtrend of his very popular peak. He's definitely one of the most impactful wrestling personalities of the last 10 years, and people sometimes don't like me saying that. That is Enzo Amore. Now known as Enzo, he went into rapping. He put out a song when he was accused of sexual assault. Legally, he was vindicated as the person who did that, then pulled the charges on him and would not go forward with it. He did get some legal vindication that way, put out a rap song, which was, I wouldn't describe it as great. But he got some notoriety with that. But he sold out some t-shirts. He did all these things. And then he's wrestled a handful of times and showed up for Ring of Honor last year at Madison Square Garden and trended number one and interrupted a WWE show at a Survivor Series pay-per-view and trended number one. But he was on Busted Open yesterday. Tommy B texting him, will we see Enzo somewhere? Enzo on Busted Open. Shout out to Dave LaGreca, Bully Ray, and all those guys. A very fun show. If you subscribe to SiriusXM, it is worth it. It is a fun show. I do listen to it quite a bit, and I enjoy it. They gave him 45 minutes of a 2-hour show they have. And he just went off on Ring of Honor. He went off on he's doing an OnlyFans thing, and most people think OnlyFans is just for adult entertainment. There's a lot of people doing real entertainment on it. He's doing wrestling content on there where he's kind of talking about, all right, here's how this is done in a ring, and here's why we're doing this. And so he's definitely training for something in wrestling. And he wants to do something in wrestling. Now, we haven't heard much from Cass, a guy who had his demons, is the term in wrestling. And we thought we were going to get Enzo and Cass tagging together. I saw them together at a Muse concert in Chicago, and they were primed. And that was right after, they did the big Ring of Honor thing. We were kind of waiting for the shoe to drop on that, and never did. I felt Ring of Honor really dropped the ball with those guys. Even if you hate those guys that much, you sure ran with it and got that white hot heat. But they didn't. And that was a big mistake, and things happened with Cass, and now we hope he's healthy. Enzo, where do you see Enzo showing up? If Enzo showed up anywhere, to me, it would be on one of the shows on Wednesday. If he was to come back to WWE, I would not put him on Raw. I would not put him on SmackDown. I would have him on NXT right away. Right away. If I was AEW and I wanted someone who could really, really aggravate that male to 18 to 34 down, I'm talking white heat, hot on the stove when you were a kid, and then mom said, don't play with fire, touch the stove. See that? It's hot. You're going to get in trouble there. This guy knows how to do that, whether you like it or not. Is he going to have a 5-star match? No. But is he somebody that you want to see get beat up? Yeah, that's pro wrestling in a nutshell, guys. That's the carny nature of the core of wrestling. And he's definitely a guy who has a lot of ideas. Some of them may be good, some of them may be bad, but he has a lot of them, and I'll admire that.
You know what? With Enzo too, he was just on talking Shopomania. He was a part of the show. And
Saturday. We didn't get to talk about that. I wanted to talk to you about talking.
And he was self-deprecating too, which was great. It was the worst.
I went out there. I didn't even cut a real promo.
Yeah. And like he interacted with the Rock and Roll Express, and how they handled it too. It was really funny. I laughed out loud at that. That's a certain moment that happened in the Boneyard match with him. Him. I think he's a commodity in wrestling. I think you need, if you are a wrestling promotion, whether you're WWE, whether you're AEW, whether you're Impact, whether you're MLW, I think Enzo should be involved in it somehow, because.
But he was also kind of emphatic in the same interview where he's like, I don't want to do this with no fans. Like I really want to do this when there's a crowd there.
Heck.
But he's if I'll say, hey, hands to whatever you pray to, right? We clear this thing, and the vaccine and the science that we're hearing about, and the time frame of it is end of the year, early part of next year. And then you go through months and months of trying to get things right. And maybe we don't have a WrestleMania week in April. Maybe we have a WrestleMania week in June or July or something like that. Why not, right? Wherever that big destination wrestling event that people are coming to, if he's not on a WWE card, if he's not on an AEW card, he's going to be on cards. This guy could be a really big draw independently. Go somewhere, get heat with those crowds. You need people that people want to boo. That's still somebody you want to pay to see because you want to see them get beat up. And Enzo is that guy. You want to talk about somebody who could show up in WWE and flip everything upside down and cut an electric promo and be a mouthpiece and maybe, take bumps here and there. It's a great guy, I think he's a guy who could really settle into a lane and be like a modern day Bobby Heenan in that sense of just gift to gab, all those different things, and can really get you mad. You need somebody who can really get you. You forget you're watching wrestling. You just want to see someone beat the shiz out of that guy, right? That's what you need in 2020, especially when everyone thinks they're so smart. Right. It's wrestling, but it's MMA and Raw Underground, right? Well, a couple of shots got laid in there, a couple of real elbows, and you forget it for a bit, right?
Yeah.
But Enzo's one of those guys who's doing that with words, but at the same time, he's putting on a show. Mm-hmm. So it's very intriguing, and you need people like that where the lines are blurry, and the lines with him are definitely blurry in a very provocative way. I would like to see him as a character on a show, not so much a wrestler. So, and to me, that's more interesting. That's nothing to take away from his wrestling. I just think it's more profound if he talks. So,
yeah, I think there's a little leeway you can have with Enzo in regards to if you want him in the ring or if you want him ringside or behind a booth of some sort.
Two Dynamite Dudes with Attitudes drops every Friday in the WrestleZone podcast feed. If you're just enjoying the show on a Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever you're doing, getting ready for Dynamite, NXT, wherever you're doing it, come up with us on Fridays, dude. Come up on that feed on Fridays. And that is, we usually don't put the video version of that, just audio. So we're trying to push that audio feed. Available in Apple, Spotify, iHeart, all the different podcast feeds, and so much more. Thank you guys for supporting the show. A lot of you guys stick with us every single day, and I love you guys. I love the people that are watching. Thomas Bellard. We got the James. We got Nick Fun from north of the border in Canada. We got Ray Barrazo. All these different people tuning into the show. I'd like to see your names pop up on screen. Thank you so much for supporting the show. If you're with us on YouTube, we're slowly climbing up that ladder. All right, we're doing it the old school ladder style. I want to go up that ladder really quick, like you would if you were on a real ladder. But hey, we're doing it. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Big shout out to everyone at WrestleZone.com. Bill, Tyler, Rob, John Clark making his debut on the podcast last night.
Another Pittsburgher.
Yeah, we got those PA boys. Those Pennsylvania boys coming in with that wah-wah on their breath.
Sheets over here, Kev.
It's Sheets? Mm-hmm. What is that? The wah-wah on the Sheets. As we sign off here.
Western Pennsylvania and West Virginia.
Is there like a dividing line? Like once you cross...
There's a big development.
This is a convenience store brand, right? This is like your 7-Elevens and stuff like that.
Oh, wait, yeah. Well, more so, I'm trying to think I don't know what Chicago had, but it's like the Royal Farms.
We used to have a group called White Hen, and White Hens became 7-Elevens, which most people know across the units. These are convenience stores, and some of them have delis, some of them have liquor stores in them. But Wawa's had they have these specific treats. You go to Wawa just for these specific treats. And then there's Sheets. Yes, there's different.
Sheets is very different. Well, not very different. I was a Sheets guy because I'm from this area starting off. I will admit, Wawa hooked me when I moved to Philadelphia. And that's an unbiased opinion.
Oh, man. My post-pandemic plans are lame. They're all built around, let me try some fast food brands I haven't had that are regional.
Yes. So.
Oh, boy. The beers, the stories, and the bullshit that we will get to when this whole thing is done.
Kev, I can't wait to
it.
get trash with you. Like,
oh, dude. We tore a couple on a StarCast.
We tore a couple. We didn't do enough, though. We didn't do enough, especially in John Burke.
You were too busy. I remember we were at StarCast, the wrestling convention, and it was like a Friday. It was like 4 days. It was very long days. They were fun. And I remember it was like, one day can we actually throw a couple pops back here? We were like, all right. Friday will work, and then stuff stretched out. We're just like, I can't even drink anymore. So we definitely have to do one of these wrestling trips where we're like, this is the time in which we are getting collectively inebriated. so we'll do that. When this whole thing clears, maybe I'll drag you out to a WWE show where I'll be just rock hard, so horny,
so hard. I'll be hating.
You'll be hating. Horny and Hayden. That'll be our new side.
Kev, I'll be like disdainly staring at your loins that night. Just like, what the
Horny and Hayden. That's what it is. You just going like me going you be like, yeah.
Do that.
Let's do it. Hold it so I can get the still frame. There we go. All right, I'm gonna go back and get that picture from
there. You go. That's the.
All right, we will return tomorrow night after NXT and AEW for the live streaming people. If you're on the podcast, you can listen to it whenever you want. Thank you so much for enjoying the show. And remember, when watching wrestling, give a follow to @Dominic D'Angelo. Give a follow @WrestleZone.com. Give a follow @KevCallum. And remember, enjoy